I can't imagine the pain and the grief that these families are experiencing this morning. Please keep these families in your thoughts and prayers.
Welcome or welcome back, and thanks for being here. I'm Cassie, and this is A Wicked World. If you haven't checked out A Wicked World on Patreon yet and want to have access to over 40 exclusive Patreon-only videos with new ones being added each month, then make sure you go check that out using the link in the description box below. Now, the story I have for you today is about a little boy and a little girl who were murdered by one of the most selfish people I've ever heard of. This is the story of Tyler and Charlee Worley. Tyler Daniel Clinton Worley was born on September 17, 2009, in Indianapolis to his mother, Brandy Worley, and his father, Jason Worley. He was a first-grade student at Sugar Creek Elementary. Tyler was loving and energetic, and he liked to play every sport he could, including soccer, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, and more. He was one of those people who could walk into a room of strangers and walk out with 20 new friends. Tyler's little sister, Charlee Rose Jean Worley, was born on September 26, 2013, in Lafayette, Louisiana. She liked to play dress-up, get her hair braided, go to story time at the library, and was enrolled at Wilson Preschool. She also took dance classes and attended basketball camp. The children's parents, Jason and Brandy Worley, had met in college, getting engaged after only 6 months. They had then gotten married a couple years later. The relationship between Jason and Brandy was never a healthy one. Brandy was said to be controlling and manipulative, and always wanted to know where Jason was at all times. She even made him block his exes on social media. But according to Jason, he'd never given her a reason for such distrust. Their first child, Tyler, would end up being born 10 weeks early. Tyler's delivery was a complicated one, and both he and Brandy nearly died. But instead of being happy that hadn't happened, instead, Brandy was upset, as she had a plan for her pregnancy and birth, and this was not it. The mother wouldn't even go to see Tyler in the NICU for some time. It was like she was mad at her new baby for what had happened. Then, in May of 2015, when their youngest, Charlee, was not even 2 years old yet, Jason noticed that his wife had put a password on her phone. When he confronted her about it, she said that she was planning a Father's Day surprise and didn't want him to ruin it. Recently, Jason had taken on a new project and new responsibilities at work. He had been noticeably stressed, so he figured that Brandy was just doing this as a kind gesture. But about a week later, Brandy would go to her husband Jason and tell him that she felt guilty for keeping a big secret from him. According to her, she was having their neighbor, who was a contractor, build Jason a home office. Now, they'd been together for 6 years at this point, and Brandy had never said that she felt guilty about anything, and had insisted that she never regretted anything in her life. So now why this? Some time went by, and Brandy kept her phone password protected. Jason also caught her smiling to herself more and more often. He felt like something wasn't right, so he waited one morning until Brandy got in the shower, then grabbed her phone before it needed a password to be reopened. It was then that he discovered that his wife, Brandy, had sent the neighbor a message in which she said, "I'm all covered in frosting. You want to lick it off?" Jason would later find out that the only reason he had only found this one text message was because Brandy had set up her phone to delete messages after a certain amount of time. When he read this text message, Jason felt rather uncomfortable, but he knew that his wife had a perverted sense of humor and didn't think that she would ever hurt him. But as more time passed, the neighbor began spending more and more time at the Worley home, working on Jason's home office. which was now, for some reason, being completed slower and slower. This, of course, made Jason even more suspicious of his wife, so he told her that he was going to install an antivirus software on her cell phone. But instead, he would turn on the GPS backup and set up text message backup and restore so that he could see where she was going and now read all her text messages remotely from his computer. Once he had installed this, Jason would find text messages between his wife Brandy and the neighbor, in which his wife was describing sex acts that she wanted to perform on him. She was also sending the neighbor inappropriate photos of herself and trying to set up a time for the two to have sex. Jason then discovered text messages in which his wife and the neighbor were saying that they loved each other. The neighbor texted Brandy saying, "You're my girl now," to which she replied, "Always have been." The neighbor then said back, "And always will be." Jason was furious and he confronted the two. Brandy, of course, would deny that she ever had sex with the neighbor and denied being in love with him. But Jason decided that enough was enough and he was going to leave her. Brandy let her husband know that if he did this, he would never see his children again. She then threatened him, using the fact that he had tried to commit suicide in high school against him to gain custody. Additionally, Brandy blamed Jason for their marital issues and told him that he had been too stressed out and working too much and she needed someone to talk to. Even after all of Brandy's threats, however, the couple decided that they were going to go their separate ways. But Brandy decided that she was going to tell Tyler and Charlee about what had happened on her own terms. And she did so while Jason was at work, informing the kids that Daddy was mad at Mommy, so Mommy needed to move out. She also told Tyler that he could not stay with his father, making the boy feel like his dad was mad at him too, if he, like his mother, had to move out. This made Jason realize that Brandy was likely going to drag their children through hell if they separated. So he decided to swallow his feelings and beg her to stay with him. She agreed, then additionally insisted that Jason apologize to the neighbor whom he had confronted, saying that they would still need to hang out with them since Tyler and their son were such good friends. Things then seemed to settle down between Brandy and Jason for a while they tried to fix their marriage. But almost a year after the original incident, around Father's Day, again, Brandy was sending the neighbor inappropriate photos of herself. When Jason called her out on it, she claimed that the photos were actually meant for him and not the neighbor. It was just a mistake. But he didn't believe her. Jason could not stop thinking about his wife's infidelity at this point. He didn't know what to do. His job performance was suffering, and he could barely sleep some nights. All he could think about was Brandy and the neighbor together. But at the same time, he worried that if he now asked Brandy for a divorce after begging her to stay just months earlier, she would be even more vindictive towards him and the children. So Jason took to Reddit and made a post about everything that had happened and asked for some advice. Of course, Redditors told Jason to leave Brandy. And later on, Jason would create another post saying that instead of trying to fix things with Brandy, who clearly did not want to fix them since she refused marriage counseling multiple times, he was going to leave her. He also confirmed that he would be meeting with an attorney the following week and had just filed for divorce. Jason had already discussed the divorce with Brandy, and it seemed like the two were at a mutual understanding. She understood why it was they were separating. Though according to Jason, when he told her of his decision, she was remarkably calm, calmer than he'd ever seen her after receiving stressful news. The next day, Brandy, Jason, and the two children would go to Charlie's dance program, before they then returned back home for dinner. After dinner, Brandy told her husband that she needed to run to Walmart to pick up some pipe cleaners for a project that Tyler was doing for school. Then she headed out. But Brandy wouldn't actually be buying pipe cleaners. Instead, she bought a knife. Meanwhile, while Brandy was at the store, Jason watched a movie with his children, had a tickle fight with them, gave them a bath, then got them ready for bed. By that time, Brandy had arrived back home, and Jason would tell his children how much he loved them and that he would see them in the morning, before he headed down to the basement where he was sleeping on an air mattress. Brandy would tell Tyler that he could have a sleepover in his sister Charlie's room before the kids then also headed to bed. Earlier, when Brandy had arrived back from her shopping trip at Walmart, she had taken the knife that she had bought and hidden it in Tyler's room. Then early the next morning at 4:35 a.m. on November 17th, 2016, Brandy was calling 911. She said that she had stabbed herself and her 2 children. While she was on the phone with emergency services, Brandy said that she was lying down on the couch waiting for police and she would not harm the first responders. She added that she was calm and tired from Benadryl that she had taken.
Montgomery County 911, where's your emergency?
203 South Madison Street,
In what town?
Darlington.
Hey, what's going on there?
I just stabbed myself and I killed my 2 children.
You stabbed yourself and killed your 2 children?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what's your name?
Brandy Worley.
Brandy what?
Worley.
Okay. And where are the children at?
In my daughter's room on the floor.
In your daughter's room on the floor? Okay. And what caused you to do this today?
My husband wanted a divorce and wanted to take my kid. I won't let him have my kid.
Okay, and how old are your children?
7 and 3.
And where did you stab yourself at?
In the neck.
Okay, are you bleeding?
Yeah, there's blood everywhere.
Now, it was Jason Worley's mother-in-law's screams of horror that would wake him up that morning. He ran upstairs to find her in the kitchen and his wife Brandy in the living room. It was at that point that Brandy turned to Jason and said, "Now you can't take my children from me." When officers arrived at the home in Darlington, Indiana, they found 7-year-old Tyler and 3-year-old Charlee Worley dead in a bedroom, partially covered with blankets, and they each had deep lacerations to their necks. A combat-style knife was also found near their bodies. Sitting in the living room, Brandy calmly told officers that she had used a knife to stab herself and her children. She said, "I did not want him to take my kids. I just wanted to die with them." The mother had first straddled Tyler, put her hand over his mouth, then repeatedly stabbed him. When Charlee had woken up during this and turned to her mother and asked her what she was doing, Brandy replied, "Nothing," and Charlee turned back over and went to sleep. Once Tyler was dead and Brandy was sure that Charlee had fallen back asleep, she stabbed Charlee as well. The mother then stabbed herself more than once, but didn't inflict any serious enough injuries. Brandy would be taken to a hospital in Indianapolis for treatment to her wounds, which were also to her neck. When she was interviewed from her hospital bed, it was said that her demeanor was very matter-of-fact, and she spoke without remorse for killing her children. Upon her release from the hospital, the 30-year-old mother would be indicted on her 2 counts of murder, and she entered a plea of not guilty.
I had a chance to meet with a woman who lives around the block from Brandy Worley, and she wanted to point out that she helped the children just a couple of days ago make a birthday card for their mom, and here's a copy of that card. I hope you can see it. It says, "Happy birthday, Mommy," from Tyler and Charlee, and inside is this inscription: "You're so special, Mommy. If ever any mommy was loved a whole bunch, you must know who it is. Just bet you do. And if ever any wish was filled with hugs and kisses, this is. And Mommy, you can bet they're all for you. Happy birthday, Tyler and Charlee." This for their mother who had a birthday a couple of days ago.
Jason would post online following Charlee and Tyler's deaths, and he would claim that Brandy had suggested he sleep on the sofa that night instead of on the air mattress down in the basement. He wondered if he had slept on the sofa like she said, would he have been able to save his children? Or, at the very least, just died with them. Jason then said, "A father has one job in this world, to protect his children, and I failed to do that." Jason's employer also opened up a GoFundMe following the murders of his children, so that he could get some assistance in helping to pay for their funerals. Then Brandy's mother opened up a GoFundMe account as well. She, however, was trying to raise money for the mother of Charlee and Tyler, the one who had killed them. She wanted to use the funds for Brandy's medical and legal expenses. Jason's ex-in-laws also gave him other problems after the children's deaths, changing the locks on the home that he was renting from them, with all his personal belongings still inside. This would result in a long legal battle between them. As for Brandy, she would end up pleading guilty to her charges, and she was sentenced to 55 years for the death of Tyler and 65 years for the death of Charlee. Her sentences are to run consecutively, which is not very common. Jason Worley was also in court when Brandy pleaded guilty, and he would say, "For me, those children were my life." He also commented on Brandy's demeanor in court by saying, "She appeared to be just as unremorseful as she was on the 911 call. She spoke in a very matter-of-fact manner when describing the crime. It was very heart-wrenching to hear her speak as she did." He added, "All I want, and all I ever wanted, was to have her out of my sight and mind so I can move on from this horror." Following their deaths, people would leave mementos outside the Worley home on South Madison Street in honor of Charlee and Tyler. A service to remember the siblings was also held on November 22, 2016, at the Darlington Community Center. After the service, both were laid to rest at the Green Lawn Cemetery, also in Darlington. Well, thank you for listening to Charlee and Tyler's story today. This case is absolutely infuriating. The reason why this mother killed her children, according to her, was because Jason was about to divorce her, meaning that he was going to take her children. But the thing is, Brandy was the one who caused the divorce in the first place. She was cheating on her husband and telling the man that she was cheating with that she loved him. What did she expect Jason to do? Just deal with it? So, if you like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. And turn on those notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is at least twice every single week. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care guys. Bye. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out at patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims never get forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a case you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email at awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.